Welcome to another episode of P-Bell Pod. I want you to just imagine something for a second.
Okay, I'm listening.
So you're an artist, right? And you've just written a song, but this isn't just any song. You've tapped into something completely raw.
Like a total creative breakthrough.
Exactly. You've written an anthem that perfectly captures like your truest, most liberated self. It feels like a massive deal, the kind of track that defines a career.
Oh, absolutely.
So you take this masterpiece to your record label, fully expecting them to just pop champagne, but instead they look at it, they tell you they hate it, and they shelve it.
Oh, man.
Yeah, for an entire year. You are plunged into this devastating, just paralyzing self-doubt.
Which is brutal for an artist.
It is. But finally, after a grueling fight, they relent. They're going to let you release your track. You are thrilled. But the release date they land on, April 2020.
Oof.
Yeah. A global pandemic immediately shuts down the exact dance clubs your liberating anthem was written for.
I mean, it is the absolute ultimate collision of personal triumph and just cosmic bad timing.
Oh.
And for our listeners tuning in today, this is the story of Pink Pony Club, the 2020 synth pop and disco pop single by the American singer-songwriter Chappell Roan.
I am incredibly excited for this deep dive, honestly, because this is not simply a story about a catchy pop track.
Right. It's so much more than that.
We are looking at a masterclass in creative defiance here. It's a narrative about the vital importance of finding a safe space. It's about fighting for the actual ownership of your own art and experiencing a massive delayed vindication 5 years after the fact.
Precisely. And to truly understand this deep dive, we really have to look past the glitz of a hit song.
Yeah.
This story forces us to look at the conflict between, data-driven industry predictive models versus undeniable human authenticity.
Right, the human element.
Exactly. It asks what it actually takes to survive as a creator when the traditional gatekeepers and, honestly, the universe itself seem to be explicitly telling you no.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can understand why the song struggled so hard, we have to understand the profound personal shift that inspired it in the first place.
For sure.
This story fundamentally begins with a physical and cultural relocation. We have Chappell Roan leaving her hometown of Springfield, Missouri, and making the move to Southern California.
And that geographic move is really the physical manifestation of a massive internal shift.
Yeah.
Yeah, according to the sources, Roan had really struggled with accepting herself back in Springfield. She felt this constant, heavy judgment simply for being different, and for being creative.
Which has to be exhausting.
It is. If you think about the psychology of growing up in a smaller, more conservative environment, there's an immense unspoken pressure to conform. The psychic weight of constantly policing your own identity, it's exhausting. And she felt that weight very heavily in Missouri.
Which brings so much gravity to what happens next. It's 2018, and she visits a place called the Abbey.
A very famous spot.
Super famous. For our listeners who don't know, the Abbey is a legendary gay bar in West Hollywood. Roan goes there, and she later stated that visiting this specific bar was, quote, the first time I could truly be myself and not be judged.
Wow.
She sees these go-go dancers performing, and it sparks this visceral reaction. She actually said, I want to be a go-go dancer, so I just wrote a song about it.
You really have to picture the contrast there. She goes from an environment of constant self-editing to an environment of total unvarnished expression.
Right.
She described the Abbey as a completely eye-opening experience, something that was structurally impossible for her to have found back in her hometown.
Yeah, completely different worlds.
It fundamentally altered her trajectory, not just as an artist, but as a human being.
I always think about that moment in The Wizard of Oz. You know, the one where Dorothy steps out of her crushed house?
Oh, right, and it goes from black and white?
Yes, exactly. The whole world shifts from this sepia-tone black and white into vibrant technicolor. The Abbey was her technicolor moment.
That's a great way to put it.
But here is my pushback for you on this. It's one thing to have a profound personal awakening. It is an entirely different skill set to turn that into digestible art. How did she actually translate that cultural whiplash into a cohesive pop narrative for the listener?
Well, she did it by building a very specific, slightly fictionalized avatar to carry her experience.
Okay, how so?
The actual narrative, embedded in the lyrics of Pink Pony Club, follows a woman from a small town in Tennessee, rather than Missouri, who packs up and moves to Southern California.
Got it.
This character then experiences freedom for the first time by taking a job dancing in a gay club in West Hollywood.
So it mirrors her real life, just tweaked a bit.
Exactly. But what grounds the narrative is that Roan pulls in a piece of local inspiration, too. The visual aesthetic she imagines for this Pink Pony Club was heavily inspired by a real-life strip club back in Springfield, Missouri.
Wait, really?
Yeah, a club that was painted completely hot pink.
See, that is brilliant songwriting. Taking a visual artifact from the hometown you're fleeing and repurposing it into the very symbol of your new liberation. So smart.
And the song doesn't just celebrate the club, it acknowledges the cost of going there. The lyrics carry this incredible core tension. On one side, you have the mother's crushing disapproval ringing in the narrator's ears, asking, God, what have you done?
Right.
And on the other side, you have the narrator's untouchable, euphoric freedom, responding with, I'm just having fun.
And that tension is exactly what elevates the track. It isn't just some generic party anthem.
No, not at all.
An analysis in Capital Buzz described the club in the song as a, quote, safe space where you feel free to be exactly who you are. The friction between the mother's fear of this new world and the daughter's overwhelming joy within it. It makes the song an exploration of the emotional toll it actually takes to claim your safe space.
And that profound inspiration triggers an absolute explosion of creativity. She writes the song in just 2 days in February 2019, working alongside producer Dan Nigro.
What's fascinating here is the sheer musical alchemy that happens between Roan and Nigro.
Yeah, they're a great pairing. They really are. You look at Dan Nigro's background. He formerly fronted an emo band before transitioning into a producer of massive pop smashes.
Oh, we didn't know that.
Yeah, so he understands theatricality and angst. Together, they take Roan's very raw, emotional narrative and construct this brilliant, genre-bending architecture around it.
So it's not just standard.
Far from it.
Yeah.
The source is classified as a mix of power pop, disco, synth pop, and dance pop. And, crucially, they make the incredibly bold choice to include 2 full guitar solos.
2 guitar solos in a modern pop song.
I know, right?
That alone tells you they were building something dramatic and theatrical. It perfectly mirrored everything she was feeling. So she takes this absolute masterpiece to her label at the time, Atlantic Records.
And they hate it.
They completely reject it.
They really did. The sources indicate the label felt the track deviated way too much from her past work. They actually tried to dissuade her from releasing it at all.
That is just wild to me.
And when she stood her ground and pushed back, Atlantic Records responded by refusing to release the song for an entire year.
We know from the sources that this left Roan, quote, devastated and made her deeply second-guess herself.
Understandably so.
But I want to push back on the industry logic here for a second. I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a label executive. If I'm sitting in a boardroom looking at spreadsheets and streaming algorithms, and an artist hands me a highly theatrical, unapologetically queer, 80s-style disco track in an era where maybe the trend is moody, minimalist poply.
You're saying you get why they hesitated.
I mean, I can almost see why the algorithm flashes red, but aren't major record labels supposed to be in the business of predicting the next wave rather than just riding the last one? Why would a music label, an industry built on trend setting, actively suppress an artist's genuine self-expression just because it didn't sound like her old stuff?
Well, because the modern music industry is fundamentally built on risk mitigation, not artistic innovation. Major labels operate on highly tuned predictive models. They look at an artist's past performance, their established brand, and the current acoustic trends dominating the charts.
So it's all data.
Completely. When Roan pivoted from whatever her previous safer sound was to this massive, queer, disco-infused power pop track, the label's data models just didn't know how to categorize it.
Right.
They viewed any deviation from her established formula as a financial liability. They completely missed the fact that raw authenticity is exactly what audiences deeply crave because, well, authenticity doesn't fit neatly into a spreadsheet.
So the machinery essentially punishes her for evolving. They hold this deeply personal song hostage for a year.
Yep.
But finally, they relent. They set a release date. The song is going to see the light of day. And that date is April 3, 2020.
The irony of that timing is almost too brutal to comprehend.
It really is. I want you, the listener, to just think back to April 2020. She releases this massive, liberating, communal dance anthem right at the exact moment COVID-19 shuts down the entire planet.
Literally the worst possible time.
Nobody is going to West Hollywood. Nobody is gathering in a hot pink room to dance with strangers. The entire world is in lockdown.
The song was quite literally robbed of its physical context. Because of that unprecedented global shutdown, the song commercially underperformed upon its initial release.
Of course it did.
It simply couldn't find its audience because its target audience was legally prohibited from gathering in the very spaces the song was written to celebrate.
Wow, that's tragic.
And in the ruthless logic of the music industry, this commercial failure ultimately led to Roan leaving Atlantic Records.
But this is where the story pivots. Because when she leaves the label, she makes a move that secures her entire future. She manages to secure majority ownership of her master recordings for several of her songs.
Including Pink Pony Club.
Yes, crucially including this one.
We need to pause on this because the mechanical importance of that detail cannot be overstated. In the traditional music industry, the label owns the masters, the actual original recordings of the songs.
Right, usually the artist doesn't own them.
Exactly. If you get dropped, those recordings usually get locked in a label vault, just gathering dust. But securing majority ownership of her masters, Roan retained total control over how that music could be used, licensed, and performed.
To put it in perspective for you listening, owning your masters is like owning the actual deed to a house you built instead of just renting it from the construction company.
That's a perfect analogy.
If the property value suddenly skyrockets 5 years down the line, you get the equity, not the corporate landlord.
Exactly. It was a massive bet on her own enduring value.
And despite the pandemic, she still manages to put out a music video on that April 3rd release date.
Yeah, she did.
It's directed by Griffin Stoddard, and it is this fascinating, surreal piece of visual art. The setting is a gritty Midwest dive bar, and it features these brilliant cameo appearances from drag queens Victoria Porkchop Parker and Meatball.
The visual narrative there is incredibly rich. Roan and the drag queens are performing on this tiny, cramped dive bar stage to a room full of tough, hyper-masculine bikers.
Right.
But as the performance continues, the energy of the song literally transforms these bikers into leather daddies.
I love that. And the best behind-the-scenes detail from the sources is that Roan was visibly nervous during the shoot. She later admitted that she was, quote, absolutely terrified of her performance while they were in production.
Which just injects this profound layer of human vulnerability into the whole project.
Yeah, it really grounds it.
Jonathan Grafham O'Mara, writing for The Conversation, provided a really brilliant synthesis of what this video actually achieves. He argued that the dive bar performance represents the utopic potentiality of performance for queer people.
Utopic potentiality.
Yeah, he contrasts that imagined perfect space with the oppressive real world that is waiting for those performers and audiences the second they step outside the venue.
I want to make sure we really grasp that. It means you are literally performing the world you want to live in into existence right there on a sticky dive bar stage.
Exactly. Even though she was terrified on set, and even though a terrifying global pandemic was shutting down the world outside the studio doors, inside the reality of that video, the safe space was real. She manifested it.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because she held the deed to her own house because she owned those masters, Pink Pony Club didn't just fade away as a casualty of 2020.
Right, it incubated.
She keeps grinding. Fast forward 3 years to September 2023. She releases her debut studio album, The Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess, through Amusement and Island Records. And sitting right there on the track list of her debut is this 3-year-old song, Pink Pony Club.
Putting a 3-year-old track that already technically failed onto a debut album is a tremendously bold move.
Takes a lot of guts.
It does. But it was the necessary foundation for what became a total pop culture explosion throughout 2024 and 2025.
Because she had the autonomy of owning her work, she wasn't waiting for permission to push it. Let's look at how she actively brought this to the masses. In 2024, she takes this song straight to the people, performing it as the closing track at almost every major festival you can name.
Oh yeah, the festival run was insane.
We are talking Boston Calling, Capitol Hill Block Party, Hinterland, Outside Lands, Lollapalooza, Austin City Limits. She even crosses into Canada for the Osheaga Festival in Montreal.
Through sheer repetition and live energy, it morphs from a track on an album into a massive communal event. And then you layer in the broadcast milestones.
Right.
In March 2024, she does an NPR Tiny Desk concert. That is crucial because Tiny Desk forces an artist to strip away the heavy club production.
Just raw vocals and instruments.
Exactly. It proves the underlying songwriting is ironclad, and it introduces her to a totally different, perhaps older, acoustic-leaning demographic of music listeners.
That's smart.
Then, in November 2024, she hits the ultimate cultural establishment stage, Saturday Night Live.
Every single one of these performances is meticulously building undeniable momentum. And the climax of this incredible redemption arc arrives on February 2, 2025 at the 67th Annual Grammy Awards.
A huge night.
She stands on the Grammy stage and performs Pink Pony Club. And that exact same night, she wins the Grammy for Best New Artist.
Just think about the mechanics of that timeline for a second. She is crowned Best New Artist in 2025, largely propelled by a song she wrote in February 2019 and released in the darkest days of 2020.
It's wild.
It completely shatters the music industry's traditional understanding of the life cycle of a hit song.
And the numbers following that Grammy performance are staggering. 5 years after it was shelved by her label, it dominates the globe. It hits number 16 on the Billboard Global 200. In the United Kingdom, it climbs all the way to number 1, becoming her first chart-topping song there, directly following her winning 2 Brit Awards.
The penetration is global. In the U.S., it peaks at number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100 in April 2025. But it absolutely commands radio, hitting number 1 on both the U.S. Pop Airplay and Adult Pop Airplay charts. It breaches the top 30 in a wildly diverse list of countries: Australia, Canada, Ireland, New Zealand, Lebanon, Slovakia, Austria, Iceland, and the Philippines.
And the sales certifications, too.
Hell.
It goes 5x platinum in the U.S., 4x platinum in Australia, triple platinum in the U.K. and New Zealand. And when a piece of art reaches that level of cultural saturation, you start seeing this bizarre, wonderful footprint of cover versions.
Which is always the best metric for proving a song has entered the cultural bedrock. If other musicians want to play it, it's structurally sound.
Oh, and the range of these covers is amazing. You have Avril Lavigne mashing it up with her own music on her Greatest Hits tour.
Amazing.
You have Rick Astley, the Rick Astley posting an intimate acoustic cover to YouTube. The indie band Moon Taxi releases their own version as a single, but my absolute favorite detail from the sources
I know what you're going to say.
GWAR. The legendary theatrical heavy metal monster band performs a metal cover of Pink Pony Club in early 2026 and incorporates it into their live tour.
That detail about GWAR and Rick Astley perfectly illustrates the structural integrity of the songwriting we talked about earlier.
Definitely.
If a pop track can be seamlessly adapted into an acoustic ballad by an 80s icon and a screaming heavy metal anthem by guys in monster suits, it is undeniably well constructed. Dan Nigro's emo and power pop framework provided bones that could hold up any genre you placed on top of it.
But the ultimate flex, the detail that really made me sit back and stare at the sources, happens in April 2026. The song is literally broadcast into space.
Just incredible.
NASA selects Pink Pony Club to wake up the crew of the Artemis II mission on their 4th day traveling to the moon.
Think about that trajectory. From a hot pink strip club in Springfield, Missouri, to a cramped dive bar set in a pandemic, all the way to the deep vacuum of space between the Earth and the moon.
It has to be the greatest geographical flex in music history. But as we look at this massive global interplanetary success,
this raises an important question about how we actually measure and understand success in art. Because when you look at the grueling reality of this timeline, it actively complicates the narrative we are usually fed by the media.
right. If you just tuned in during 2025, you might assume this was just another algorithmically generated overnight TikTok hit.
Exactly. In today's media landscape, we view almost everything through the lens of sudden viral fame. A song blows up on an app, and suddenly the artist is a superstar overnight.
It seems so easy.
The industry loves that narrative because it makes success look effortless and immediate. But the reality of Pink Pony Club aggressively pushes back against that myth.
It was not a viral fluke. It was an exercise in extreme emotional endurance.
Exactly. It was a grueling 5-year crawl. Think of the psychological toll we've outlined. Roan faced outright rejection from the very experts hired to launch her career.
Right, the label.
She faced the devastating reality of a global pandemic, annihilating her release strategy. She experienced deep, documented self-doubt and the harsh commercial failure of the track in 2020.
When she reflected on that dark period later, she literally said, quote, "It's like, damn bitch, were you wrong? It was the worst time ever to release a gay club song, and it still had such an impact."
That quote perfectly captures the nuance of her journey. The song's ultimate triumph wasn't born from an algorithm favoring it one random Tuesday. It was born from her stubborn, unwavering belief in the track when nobody else believed in it.
She just wouldn't let it go.
She took her masters, she kept performing it live, and she believed in the utopic potentiality of the world she had built inside those 3 minutes of audio. The Grammy win and the chart domination aren't just a story of luck. They are a story of pure vindication against a system designed to mitigate risk.
So what does this all mean? If we bring this deep dive full circle back to those lyrics we talked about at the very beginning, the mother in the song looks at her daughter's new life and asks, "God, what have you done?"
Right.
And sitting here in 2026, the irony of that question is just breathtaking. What Chappell Roan had done was write the definitive pop anthem of the decade. She created a sonic safe space for millions of people who felt exactly like she did back in Missouri. She outlasted the algorithmic doubts of a record label, she survived a global lockdown, and she wrote a song that was literally played on the way to the moon. It is the ultimate proof that the truest version of yourself is usually the one worth fighting for.
And it proves that even if the world isn't ready for your truth the very moment you speak it, if you secure the rights to your own voice and hold on to it, well, the world might just catch up.
It leaves you wondering, too, if the traditional data-obsessed label system completely missed the boat on the most culturally resonant anthem of the decade, what other absolute masterpieces are currently locked away in corporate vaults, just waiting for the artists to buy back their own futures? It's something to think about next time you look at the charts.
Thanks for listening to People Pod. Keep tuning in for more stories worth knowing.